All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Saying.
All right, good morning.
Has a ball. It's a sport if it doesn't.
It is. Did you already push the record? Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. It is 8:03 a.m. and I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And if I could ask Secretary Ingham to do roll call.
So, Commissioner Carrillo? Here. Commissioner Manis? Here. Taylor?
Taylor. Here.
Commissioner Taylor?
Oh, here, sorry. Here.
Commissioner Klosasiewicz?
Here.
Commissioner Beck?
Here.
Commissioner Obenshain?
Here.
Secretary Ingham? Commissioner Gibson?
Here.
Vice Chair Gibson? And Chair Burt?
Here. That's all 9 of us. All right, Commissioner Beck, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the New Mexico flag. To the flag, States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you, everybody. All right, next item is the approval of the agenda. And I'll pause if there's any changes to be proposed. Seeing none, I'll move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second by Secretary Ingham. Any discussion? Seeing none, if you can call roll, please.
Okay, Commissioner Klosasiewicz?
Yes.
Commissioner Beck?
Yes.
Commissioner Obenshain?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Manis?
Yes.
Commissioner Carrillo?
Yes.
Secretary Ingham says yes. Vice Chair Gibson? And Chair Burt?
Yes. All right, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, next item will be item number 3 in public comment. And this will be general public comment. We'll get to public comment on the specific schools during their renewal hearing. So this will just be if there's anybody who has general public comment. And I'll pass it over to Ms. Brown to help me out.
There's nobody signed up for general public comment.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. All right, that'll take us to item number 4, renewal hearings. I apologize. All right, so that'll take us to item 4A, 6 Directions Indigenous School. And our first item, which is the charter school. Well, first I'll ask if any commissioner, if you have any need for recusal or anything you need to say about the school. Okay. All right, that'll take us to charter school evaluation.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Sure.
The Charter Schools Division presentation for each school on the renewal hearing agenda will be made by the team lead who visited that school for their renewal visit. In 6 Directions case, it's Lucy Valenzuela, who's sitting with me. Ms. Valenzuela will be doing all 3 of the schools on today's agenda. Mr. Greg Butz will be doing the school on tomorrow's agenda. I would like to just make a few remarks prior to the individual school presentations. It's about the rubric in the renewal application. The Charter Schools Division did our best to rate schools meets the standards, demonstrating substantial progress or failing to demonstrate progress on each section of the the rubric in the application. Meets the standards was easy. That's if they had meets across the board for that indicator or their spotlight school, that was easy. The line between demonstrating substantial progress and failing to demonstrate progress was challenging for us for some schools. There were schools, particularly in academics, that were demonstrating substantial progress in ELA, but not in math, or were demonstrating substantial progress in the last year of the contract term, but not in prior years. And so we did include a detailed explanation in the renewal analysis and recommendation for why we rated the schools as we rated them. And obviously, if commissioners disagree with the way we rated them, they can vote their conscience. So I have one thing to add before Ms. Valenzuela presents 6 directions. This school, the head administrator notified us, not through Epicenter officially, but by email, that she had submitted a letter of resignation. It's unclear to me at this point if the board has accepted her resignation letter or if that resignation date has been, well, obviously it's been extended because initially she notified us that she was resigning effective October 31st and she's here today. So obviously the board has not yet accepted her resignation. When I spoke with board members a few weeks ago, it was still not clear what their plan was going forward. Now, a recommendation for renewal or non-renewal should never, ever, ever be person dependent. Whom the board appoints as their head administrator is their prerogative. However, I am hoping that the board will make clear to the commission during today's hearing what their plan is going forward. And this is especially important because the school's improvement in academic indicators has taken place during the tenure of the current head administrator. And so it's important that the board have a clear policy going forward for school leadership, whether that's the current head administrator or a different head administrator, as long as the board is clear and lets the commission know what their plan is going forward to keep the academic progress of the past year going. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Valenzuela.
Good morning, Chair Burke and Commissioners. My name is Lucy Valenzuela, the Authorizing Administrator for the Charter Schools Division, and I'm here to provide to you the PED evaluation for 6 Directions Indigenous School. 6 Directions Indigenous School, authorized by the PEC, began operating in 2015, and it is now undergoing its 2nd renewal. From the moment one steps onto campus, the school's dedication to culturally relevant Indigenous education and interdisciplinary project-based learning is evident, reflecting its unique mission and educational program. The school is led by Ms. Rebecca Nija, and I led the renewal visit with Robert Gallegos on Wednesday, October 8, 2025. The Charter Schools Division recommends that 6 Directions Indigenous School be renewed with a charter contract term of 5 years with the condition that the school improves proficiencies in English language arts and mathematics. This recommendation is based on the record of the school's performance over the course of the contract term. The renewal application, which highlights adult actions and programs in the service of student progress and verification of those programs and adult actions during our renewal site visit and annual visits. In regards to their academics, throughout the course of its contract term, SDIS has slowly increased their points via the state accountability system. In 2021 through 22 school year, SDIS received a CSI designation. The following year, a designation of ATSINEL, and for the last 2 years of its contract term, SDIS has received a traditional school designation through NMVistas. As you know, proficiencies were released last month, and SDIS, due to their end size, all proficiencies for ELA, math, and science are masked but we could see that they did make some kind of progress and improvement from the year prior. In regards to their financial and organizational structure, SDIS consistently met financial standards with meet standards ratings on all financial indicators for 4 years. The only exception was in FY23, where a repeat audit finding resulted in a working to meet standard rating for one indicator. No material weaknesses or significant deficiencies were identified, and there were no more than 2 total findings in any fiscal year. For the ratings in Part B, the school met the standard in their mission-specific goals, educational program, equity and identity, and tribal consultation. Demonstrate substantial progress was rated for student outcomes, financial compliance, and other performance framework indicators. The school received failing to demonstrate progress due to governance responsibilities. As stated in the analysis, there are some issues in communication, in submitting timely notifications to you as the PEC in regards to board changes and designations and resignations. In conclusion, SDIS is a truly unique school where all individuals feel welcomed as consistently expressed in focus groups. While proficiency scores may not always reflect it, students are actively engaged in learning. The POD system, which was implemented this school year, has been particularly effective in fostering student success. SDIS highlighted its trilingual curriculum, offering main courses in English while also teaching Dene and Zuni. Again, the Charter Schools Division recommends that Six Directions Indigenous School be renewed with a charter contract term of 5 years, with the condition that the school improves proficiencies in English, language arts, and mathematics. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that'll take us to the second item, which is tribal input. And so first, I'll ask if there is anybody online or in person that is representing the Navajo Nation or Zuni Pueblo. Please feel free to come forward. Thank you. And at this time, you can push your buttons and the floor is yours. So if you can introduce yourself and provide input. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. She Dr. Shayla Yellowhair Unisha, Tudik Ujanishle, Nanish Ajatachit Nibashistrin, Tabahai Dashache, Bipitotne Dashanella. My name is Dr. Shayla Yellowhair. I am Shayla Yellowhair. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Department of Dene Education. I am from Fort Defiance and sit here in front of you to provide tribal input on behalf of Navajo Nation for Six Directions. The Department of Dene Education has consulted with Six Directions for multiple years, and each year it continues to be our favorite consultation, my favorite consultation. This year, the students came in with drums and singing, and we could hear them coming up the stairs, and that does not happen. The consultations that we have, while heavy in information, often lack the character or the spirit of what the schools are about. Six Directions is not like that. We know immediately, just by looking at the kids, being in their presence, that the school is not only impactful, but the meaning behind why they show up on a daily basis is apparent. One of my favorite things this past year, we consulted with them a couple weeks ago, and the kids spoke. There was a student who spoke to us in Zuni, and I've as a Navajo woman, I've heard Zuni, but I've never seen small kids speak it, and it made my heart so happy. Like, I don't know what he was saying, but it was just so wonderful to hear him. And the thing that I really I'm telling you all about this is because he was making mistakes, and you could tell, but he plowed on and he kept trying, and he did it again and again and again, and he kept bringing his identity to the forefront. And so those those students there, I know I have no shadow of a doubt in my mind that the school supports not only their spirits, but their hearts and their minds. And for me, as assistant superintendent of Department of Dine Education, that is one of the most important things for us moving forward. The second and last thing I will say is the difference between this school and other schools that we have seen, whether they are charter schools outside of Dream Dine or School of Empowerment, Action, and Perseverance. Those three schools in particularly, but I'll speak about this one, is they start with the language culture at the center. And then they build the curriculum around that. Then they build, the academic support. And it has been proven time and time again that students who are proficient in their language outperform their peers in an academic setting. And that is something that Navajo Nation takes very, very seriously. When it comes to the support of our tribally controlled schools, this school is one of the schools that we would want our schools to go see because they are a model, again, of not only starting with their language and culture, but also doing so in a way that is unapologetic, in a way that is in your face to the point that you are going to listen. You are going to watch and you know that these kids are going to rule wherever we decide to go in our civilization. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, ibn Shay Suzette Haskey Oberly and she had last change let Sunday Bush Jane. Kia Ani Dashichedo Tkachini Dashanella. Hi, my name is Suzette Haskey Oberly. I am the program manager for the Johnson O'Malley program. And like Assistant Superintendent Yellow Hair had stated, Six Direction has always been doing amazing programs. My staff and I get to meet with them more than consultation. My staff went out to their events and partook in the feast day, the celebration. And I think it's really unique, really uniquely done because you see the differences between how culturally Navajo, when they butcher the sheep, how they separate between Zuni and Navajo. And it helps, I think, with it helps our Navajo students and Zuni students see the differences, the similarities and the differences between our cultures. And it provides just a unique perspective. We also see the kids really engaged. They're really actively learning and seeing how they are really passionate about their school and what's taking place there. I think it's a very unique program. I support the 5-year renewal. I think it's really important to allow our kids to thrive in a very very unique environment. And I can honestly say that it's been really great seeing their progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you all coming up. I wanted to pause and just make sure there's anybody from the Zuni tribe that,
We have a letter that they would like us to read into record.
that's wonderful. Thank you.
I would like to show it on screen for you as well. Fine. All right. Oh, and then Dr. Nez is on. Should I promote that? I thought we thought that Dr. Nez had signed up for just public comment, but I can have Dr. Nez read their own letter. So just a second. Dr. Nez, I'm promoting you to the panel. You could accept that. And then you could make your own statement.
Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are. would you like me to read your letter, or would you like to read your letter?
I can just make a general statement, and a letter can be attached as well with the,
I'm projecting the
as a
letter
support.
to the screen. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay, thank you. And good morning, esteemed commissioners and colleagues and others who are also in the room and also online. My name is Andy Nez. I currently sit on the 25th Navajo Nation Council. I am also an appointed member to the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. And I am Koge, born for Tuatachini, Kachini Zamaichedo, Ashte Armanala. And I come from a community just north of the nation's capital, about a good 15-minute drive, a community called Rabbit Brush. And I appreciate the Department of Diné Education for continuing their tribal consultations. As a former member of the tribal consultation team and now in a capacity as a legislator, I continue to be informed to the best I can on a lot of what is occurring within our communities, as well as those surrounding the Navajo Nation. As you know, Six Directions Indigenous School is located in Gallup, New Mexico, and their high population, I believe it's actually at 100%, according to the recent Tesser report, that they have full Native American students who are primarily Navajo. And as a member of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, our focus is a lot on where our students are mobilizing, and in this case, within our community here. One thing that I appreciate about any of our charter schools, as well as Deep Dream Diné, Six Directions, is that they incorporate a lot of the community-based initiatives to help in our students' learning. I think what makes these charter schools very unique is they take into the consideration wholeheartedly the students' interests, their drive, and their commitment to learn in the best interest that serves them. And I think the school has established a model that helps to replicate that for their students. And as you heard earlier, there are instances where they proudly exert that to community, but they also do that academically. And this renewal will allow them to build on that strength, to allow them to get more creative, to, be more intuitive with what they have learning in and outside of the classroom. I didn't get a chance. They did send out an invitation to myself sometime, and you probably all know as legislators, in the legislative capacity, we're pulled in many different directions, and they had outlined a lot of the activities that they were doing. And I get this for myself. I get these invitations and I do my best to go and attend them. But I think it's student led and it's student driven, and they allow you to be able to be a part of it and make sure you feel that you are a part of that. And I think just this renewal moving forward for the next 5 years would help them, again, as I mentioned, to engage more, to build their capacity on their culturally based events, to embed within the math science projects their literacy. And a lot of that just, takes fine tuning, and I have no doubt that the school would be able to fulfill those and reach that capacity moving forward. So I appreciate the commissioners for listening and everyone who is on the call, but also in the room supporting our students here. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, that ends tribal comment as far as I'm aware.
Okay, all right, thank you. So very quickly, right before I move on, I just want to once again ask if there's anybody here from the Zuni Pueblo to make comment on behalf of that tribe. Okay, so
We had a hand raised, but it's been put down.
maybe back down. So I do want to say that I did call. There was a memo sent out September 22nd from the secretary, and I used that to make a phone call to the Pueblo of Zuni, left a voicemail, and then also sent an email letting them know about this renewal hearing and the location, the Zoom link, the time. So that was sent to the governor's office and two other members of the staff there. All right, thank you. And thank you once again to the Navajo Nation for the input that you're providing. All right, that'll take us to 4A3, which is public comment specifically on this school.
We have 12 people signed up in the room. And so we will start with our first speaker. And if you'll come up to the presentation desk and remember to please spell your last name for the court reporter. Joseph Begay is our
Thank you.
first.
And I'm also going to make a really quick reminder that we do have someone that's typing what you're saying. So make sure you speak as clearly and slowly as possible, just so that she can get it down exactly the way you said it. And then if, yeah, push the button until you see it turn green. Oh, first try. Good job. You make it look so, everyone made it look so difficult. You're so easy for you. All right, all yours.
My name is Joseph, Joseph I go to Six Directions, and I think Six Directions is good because they, whenever you need help, they'll help you, and then whenever you don't know the question, they'll get into detail whenever you don't know the question. They'll like explain it more, and then I like it because they really like explain the questions. Because the other school I used to go to, they didn't really explain the questions. They just kept giving us work and kept making us go on the computers, which really didn't help me until I went to Six Directions. That's when they started like teaching like in a different way that I can like understand it, and it's like better because the school that I used to go, the last school went to, they didn't. I guess they didn't really like explain it too much. They just said barely any details and just gave us paper. But Six Sections, I like it. They really get into details and they really have trips and all. I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, and I'm going to do my best here. I'm thinking that it's Harley Doe or Joe or Don or John. Yep.
Keep pushing it. There you go. And then really as loud as you can.
My name is Harley Joe. H-A, Harley. The reason why I'm defending Six Directions Middle School is Six Directions School is because I've been going here for at least a couple of months by now, and well, other schools they didn't really make me feel that special. I just felt scared, got bullied a lot, and been a couple of fights that I'm not really proud of. But as soon as I went to Six Directions, all of that changed. Felt more happier. Felt more. Actually, do want to learn. So, so that's why I'm here to talk. But Direction Middle School is that I feel more safe, you know. But it makes me want to learn because my old schools they used to just put a computer in front of our faces and just let tell us a little of nothing what to do. Expects us to get an average grade. And I used to fail a lot in school called Chief Manalito. I used to fail really bad until I went to Six Directions, start actually doing my work, started doing more better, making more friends than Chief Manalito. Sometimes you couldn't even use the bathroom in Chief Manalito. It was really bad because they used to kids used to like put their phones over the stall trying to take pictures of you and everything. But at Six Directions they just leave you alone. There's no problems, nothing. Not kids trying to fight you for whatever you want, not trying to make fun of you. And so that's why.
Thank you. You can go ahead and just leave the microphone on for our next speaker, Renee Cleveland. Oh, you just turned it off. There you go.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Renee Cleveland, Sanjikin Ishla, Bilagana, Bashachin, Kiani, Dashachido, Bilagana, Dashanella. I work at Six Directions Indigenous School since 2016 when the school opened. And it is a good school. It's a very beneficial to our students who come to the school. You can see the difference from the time that they arrive. And you give them a couple of months and they're totally different students, especially since Mrs. Rebecca Nahe became our principal. And I've seen all these other principals who have come to the school, but she's the one that made the big difference there and really tying everything to our mission statement there. And thank you, I hope you do Renewal school, not just because, I work there, but, I work for the students. I don't work for the board. I don't work for Becca. I work for those students every day. And so thank you for giving this old timer some time here. And I got to go take care of my vehicle. I couldn't pay for the parking. So thank you again, for your consideration. I appreciate all of you. Yeah.
There's free parking in the state employee garage. Our next speaker is Luella Poblano.
O Luella Poblano Lechina, Ho Kwalashi Beach Dewan Shokudoko Awan Chawe. Good morning, commissioners, Six Directions, family, and our community supporters. And I just want to come up here and just say that, I fully support Six Directions School, its staff, its students, and the families in the community. And moving forward, it's all going to be about students. How are we going to continue to keep Six Directions a safe learning place? And how are we going to maintain and continue the work of the Indigenous programs that have been started here at the school? And, I just want to thank everybody that has been our supporters. And, we will continue to serve as governing board models in moving the school forward. Elakwa, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, need my glasses for this one. Oh, no, we don't. Wilhelmina Yazzie. Next one I need them for.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and the Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning on behalf of Six Directions Indigenous School. Sheya Ziladish Chitni National Kaya Ani Bashish Chin, Twitchini Dashichedo, Ashihe Dashanala, Hot Ego the Nestan initially, Tetra Talk all the Hasnedi Icy Nasharo, Arishiaho, Akoiha. So first, in my role is I'm first a mother. That is the title that I always use in these spaces that I come to, because being a mother is a very important responsibility in our Navajo way of life and in an Indigenous way. We consider our children very sacred, and we have this sacred responsibility to ensure that they are provided steps on how to live, and then also have them be prepared when they get into adulthood. So I come to you as a mother first this morning, and I just want to say, thank you. Six Directions is very dear to my heart. I've been on the board before, and I came back just recently, and I'm back on there. The reason why I came back is because really what the school stands for, and I think everybody pretty much really provided testimony this morning on how important the school is for our children, because it really does incorporate really their identity, who they are, where they come from, how they are proud to stand strong and be grounded in everything that they do and the success that they're aiming for. So again, I just want to give my support for our school to continue, and we will keep working together as a community, relatives, and just for the best interest of our children. So yeah, thank you for giving me this time.
So it turns out we do have somebody online from the Zuni Pueblo, Virginia Chavez, and I'm trying to give her permission to speak. Ms. Chavez, if you would like to make public comment,
Good morning. Can you hear me?
we can.
Okay. Good. Cotton awan tewa ke cotton tewanan ate. Yes, this is Virginia Chavez, Councilwoman for the Pueblo of Zuni, and I'm here in support of our Six Direction School. I am here on behalf of the entire tribal council, and each one of us supports the school. The school used to be a low performing school, but have since then excelled and have made significant progress, moving them from a low status or low performing school into the status of a traditional designation, which means it is in good standing. So we are happy that this has happened at our Six Direction School, because I know the school is very much student-centered and do everything in their power to help each student succeed. So with that, our students look forward to going to school every day. They love the school. They love everything that's going on in that school, the cultural teachings, the academic teachings, everything that just helps and even like motivates our children to attend school regularly. So I just want to commend the staff there, the administrator there, for doing their best in helping our students succeed. And so we support the school entirely. Thank you. Elahqua.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Chavez. And I just want to say thanks again to the Zuni Pueblo for participating.
Next in the room, we have Mateo Small-Waisted Bear Smith.
Ang tatuwaste mitako yapi, oto awanderakia yate. Good morning, my relatives. My name is Mato, Small-Waisted Bear Smith, and I am a governing board member, have been so since November 11th of a year ago. I am fourth generation Wounded Massacre survivor. I am Lakota from the Sichanga Oyate. I've been a teacher here in New Mexico for 15 years now, retired. I'm also a boarding school survivor. And it is for this reason that I am so honored to be on Six Directions Governing Board. It's always been my driving mission as an educator to work in Indian country, to give my students the kind of education I wish that I would have had. I see that happening here at Six Directions. I have a very strong commitment to this school. I love what it stands for: decolonization, centering indigeneity in the curriculum, tribal sovereignty, focusing on culturally responsive curriculum, which was what I did for most of my 40-year teaching career, was to center my students' culture and language so that they saw themselves always reflected in their learning, that their learning had purpose. And I see that at Six Directions. And I'm very happy to serve on this board. And thank you all for giving us this opportunity to speak this morning. I'm thankful for everyone that is listening in on Zoom. I appreciate your continued support. Wapila mitako yasi.
Thank you, and I sincerely apologize for mispronouncing anybody's name. Next, we have Alice Benale.
Yeah. Yeah. Johnson is a subcontractor, and we provide gym and funds to school to provide Indigenous teaching, Indigenous education, cultural resilience, ensuring the academic. Johnson, six direction semester, and JM, sure, I'll look at the academic growth as well as the cultural language programs for school. Some at the same time, see students. This,
Thank you so much. And then our final speaker is Winnie So.
Hello, my name is Winnie So, WINNIETSO. The reason that I want our school to stay open is because it really helped in my education and to help me learn about my culture instead of just putting us in front of a computer. And I also like how the teachers engage with the students and get to know them. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That concludes public comment.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone for speaking. All right, that'll bring us to the school comments. So I'll let you all, let the team that's presenting for the school come up and get set up. And then after you do introductions, then we'll start your time at the 30 minutes. Okay. So what I'll ask you to do first is just introduce yourselves with your names, and then you can start.
Yeah. Good morning. Hi, my name is Denisha Eddy, DINEISHAEDDIE. Thank you.
Good morning, JEETS.
Good morning. My name is Coban, KOBAN.
Hello, good morning. Yateben and She'e, Denisha Eddy and She, my cousin, the Indigenous versus Chin, Mexican clan, born for Black Sheep, and the Vice President of Six Directions Indigenous School. I'm currently senior graduating next month to be shared. At Six Directions Indigenous School, as students, we recommend storing around and industrial knowledge when we enter these spaces. So Caleb is to space with a song.
Always so yeah. So,
Okay, thank you. I think there was directions Indigenous birth and relation everyone is in the room kind of just on computers. So as the teachers, they were on their phones, not really giving students much attention, and I really didn't learn anything. You were finding teachers, like I said, and like Miss Rebecca came teacher, and she became head administrator when I was in 10th grade the following year. Then we went into the actual values of cultural themes, and we started actually valuing the school of students. But the adults didn't, staff didn't. First protest, which I will hand the mic over to Caleb so he can explain that further.
because to see themselves as students, we peaceful protests walk out and created signs. We told staff that teachers listen to us and spoke us up. We gave respectful speeches after that protest. The entire staff, except for Mr. Renewal, Dr. Lopez, and Mr. Chico.
After the protest, Miss Rebecca taught us for half of the entire year, and this came. The school felt refreshing, and it was a it's no drama. We had peace tables to solve everything. We became a family. Peace tables are for civil spaces for students to have a calm environment to share with each other. To listen to decide how to move together and move past the situation. We taught parents how to deal, but it was harder for them than us, but we got there.
Since since the demonstration, we have been learning in pods, and I will read it off my phone. I stand before you today to share insights into an innovative educational model that has emerged in our community following recent demonstrations. Our school has transitioned to a pod-based learning system structured around 4 distinct group names after the 4 directions: east, south, west, and north. These pods are intentionally composed of students from diverse grade levels, cultivating a collaborative ecosystem where peer support is paramount. Our high school students demonstrating exceptional leadership dedicate their time to mentoring middle school students who require additional academic assistance. Moreover, we are deeply committed to integrating Indigenous practices into our educational framework as an example during a recent curriculum segment on essential newborn needs. We incorporated traditional Native teachings, emphasizing the significance of cradle boards adorned with turquoise at the head. Furthermore, we are strong advocates for Indigenous language preservation, ensuring that our language classes are exclusively taught in the traditional language. Our vision is to foster an educational environment that not only honors and preserves our Indigenous heritage, but also equips our students with the competencies necessary to excel in the broader academic sphere. We believe this balanced approach is vital for the holistic development and future success of our students. Thank you.
We made so much progress odds with the titles in one instead of small classes. I bet that is high right now. The teachers have professional development with Ms. Rebecca, and she included us in giving feedback to the staff. And to this just their subjects. It wasn't following the framework. They were planning other things than what was asked. Teachers teach from
artists and anyone that has knowledge on keeping our culture alive. We have a student dance group and it's Zuni and students to sacred sites around Mexico, Arizona, and colleges. We have Cornwall and Cornwall and many histories of the place we go to. Action stories, we send the ladder home.
to shoot multiple times a year. We had a traditional hair day. We learned crocheting, sewing, Zoom slash we have students who receipts of gun violence. We have a large amount of students who are grandparents. I think we're done with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rebecca Naihe, Rebecca-Niiha. Nut Bolitaki Yamayan Hopi Matiwa, Nut Rebecca Yambahan Matiwa, Nut Kawewangwa, Basbawangwa, Nititubi Uncle. I come from the Hopi tribe. My clans are corn and child of a butterfly. and I come from the village of Sitsumuli. And we have a PowerPoint also ready. While the PowerPoint gets set up, Six Directions was founded in 2015 and 16 by Lane Towery and Ben Sosi, who envisioned a school for Indigenous children that empowered them. And in the mission statement, where it talks about critical consciousness, holistic well-being, and having a plan for post-secondary success, it also unpacks what that means by saying that it's directly an antidote to the disenfranchisement and colonization of the people in the Gallup area. Can you go down to the next few slides? Oh, thank you. I think- Yeah. At our school, we have 16 pueblos and tribes. We are 100% federally enrolled, recognized tribes. And these are just some unpacked of our mission statements, but you can go down some more. This is what the students had planned to have in the background while they were speaking. Oh no.
So it looks like it won't let me play it.
So the imagery are just pictures of their protest signs. Most of them said that we were the ghost of a boarding school, which was the mantra of the 2023 protest. It occurred in the first 6 weeks of the school year. And you can go to the next slide. There you go. As the student stated, there was a protest that occurred and it was a peaceful walkout. From that time, kind of starts the spark of the transformation. You can go to the next slide. And you can go to the next slide. So you can just kind of quickly click through, but these are just images of sort of what the school does. They were meant to be displayed in the background while students were speaking. While those are playing though, I will give face into, usually when people meet us, they ask us, how did you do this? And what triggered that spark of the first initial protest? And it all starts with, we teach the exact same way every single year, but it starts with how we're related to each other and our clans and our history and our identity. And from there, the very first lesson that we ever teach is to read the log of Christopher Columbus. And then we read Bartolome de las Casas, and we look at what happened in the 100-year timeline around that time, because we're setting up the critical consciousness of unpacking systems. And students annotate in highlighters, and they make fun of my highlighters, but they have to annotate to look for what were the motivations, how does he describe the people around him, and what does this mean? From there, we look at Bartolome de las Casas, where he documents the destruction of the Indies, and we highlight for the same things. After that, we look at children's literature, and we present them with books that are meant to teach them about Columbus. And from there, all of the standards are elicited through whose voice is missing, whose is present, who benefits from that, and what do we do about it? And that's in the very first week of school. So when Six Directions I first came, we did all of that, and then we watch a speech by someone named Chimamanda Adichie. After we read the first novel written from a Taino perspective, who are the people that Christopher Columbus encountered. And we watched this speech specifically because she calls it the danger of a single story. And the easiest way to dispossess a people is to tell their story for them. But stories can repair that broken dignity. And our essential question becomes, who gets to tell stories for the entire year? After that, we look at systems just in general. We look at creation stories, we look at Native American history, we look at multiple perspectives of whose voice is missing and whose is present and what does information teach us about those things. And then they do a research project about all of those things, but they center their own identity first. And then after that, we start looking at laws and policies and systems that were created to kind of control all of those creation stories that we discussed. We look at the Indian Health Service. We look at boarding schools. We look at laws and Indian removal acts. And we look at all of the things that sort of created the dynamics. And we compare that to the systemic global entities around the world because this is a pattern. And when they're able to recognize patterns, they're able to unpack those patterns. The way that we also approach assessments is the same thing. We tell students that these are assessments that were not created for you with you in mind or your worldview. And it's a system, but it wouldn't be fair of adults to not teach you how to navigate that system. But the data is we're so entrenched in it because we want students to be able to show that we have a decolonial and centering that also shows results on these Western framework systems. And that's what we've proven in the last 3 years now. Some historical insight into Six Directions, 2015, 2016. In 2016 and 17, the first designation was a CSI school. It remained a CSI school until 2022, but in 2019, a report came out from the New Mexico Public Education Department, which said that Six Directions had then slipped into the bottom 5% of all the CSI schools. So the turnaround of 2023 is centered on the zooming in of worldviews, on a decolonial perspective, on looking at multiple perspectives in every single thing and questioning all of it. And I think that's some of the background historical understanding for why the protests occurred and the hilarity that they used the same format of annotating a text to read the bylaws line by line and to look at different things about what systems are functioning in their own lives in their education system. We took it further last year when Mr. Chico taught a civics class where they unpacked the family income index markers, which is what is an at-risk student? How are you represented in these statistics? What is Yazi Martinez's case? How is it relevant to you? And how does it inform how a community can determine what they want to be true for themselves and for each other? If you can just skip ahead, these are some of the sacred sites that we visited. We have a partnership with NISN, who received an ACE grant, which was a $5 million grant above about 5 years. And we were one of several schools that did it. We chose to use it on visiting sacred sites, tribal colleges, and universities. We've gone all over the Southwest area. You can scroll all the way down. I showed you the graph of page 65. These are some of our best practices, but this is everything I just said. And when we entered that 3 years assessment was due, and it showed that there was a negative 80% negative growth over the 3 years from 2020 to 2023. And COVID impacted a lot of that. There was also, when I entered, a proficiency rate of the top row of the graphs that are about to be shown. We were at 6% proficient in ELA, 8% in math. The most recent NWEA scores are at the bottom. So these are the proficiencies, the blue growth from the top to the bottom. They just took this test about a month ago. And then if you go to the next slide though, what's really significant about Six Directions within the last 3 years is that the NWEA compares data by RIP, which the typical growth rate is 3 to 7 points within 1 year. Our students are gaining 300 to 400% above that national norm. We're growing up to like 20 points within a year. I also just had to do a growth analysis for some award ceremonies that our students had yesterday. And we realized that we also have percentile points gains of between 10 and 80 points percentile wise. So students are going from the first percentile up to the 80th percentile within one semester. Can you go back to the other graph? Also, just to explain more, the bottom graph also accounts for 35% of students that are brand new to the school. And of those 35%, they all entered our school at the first percentile, 90% of them. And so it shows that accelerated growth of a decolonial model for Indigenous students centered on them deciding what should be true for them can work. If you go to the next two slides, our data is masked for NAMASA, but this is our data. So for 2023 in ELA, on the Vistas report, it shows that we had negative, less than or equal to 10% growth. This year, our proficiency is 18.5. The growth rate is above the state's growth rate, and it mirrors what our NWEA data shows, that our students are growing 300 to 400% above national norms within one semester. This is the year, so the state also assessment only grades students in grades 6 through 8 and grade 11. So NWEA kind of captures, we wanted to show both altitudes. The next slide is just the historical context of where we've gone. Oh. What do we do with the data? So we've developed a really beautiful system called Catch and Relief. Every Friday, every teacher has to meet with every student one-on-one and capture data of how they're mastering different things. But then also, it captures a heat map of how the whole school is progressing. And because we were still siloing ourselves into grade level boxes, which is still a colonial construct, we developed a pod system based on all of that data so that it's agile and it moves and it's autonomous, so that students are moving in groups of learning based on where their data is, and teachers are teaching and responding to that at every single individual level and group level and as a whole school. And then the other thing about pods too is that the entire curriculum this year is centered on our Navajo and Zuni language teachers. And they have a conversation with each other and they say their worldview, and we braid in all of the standards of science, social studies, ELA, all of that gets braided into that worldview first. And our position is that when we understand as Indigenous people that there's been historical trauma that can get passed on in our DNA from boarding school era, from the loss, and from all of the colonial constructs that have affected us over time. But also in our DNA lives ancestral memory. And when we place students proximate to experiences that evoke that ancestral memory, there's research that shows it actually heals that broken and historical trauma DNA. So that's kind of the center of our entire school year this year. In terms of answering the questions about staff credentialing and graduation rates, it's graduation rate goes by every student that's ever entered our school. And so if they've left and not graduated in a different school, it counts for our data. If we have, we actually have 100% since we've had a graduating class of students graduate, and we've had 2 engaged seniors 2 years that did graduate as year 5 and year 6ers. And this year we've realized that we have about 80% of our graduating class eligible to graduate early. So they're eligible to graduate in the December. The next slide is governing council.
Okay, so my apologies on that, but on the, regarding the governing council governance, during the fiscal years of 2022, 23, and 24, some of the members did not complete the required training hours. So in the fall of 2024, after being out of compliance for 3 consecutive years, the existing board resigned and then a new governing council was instated. Following the instatement of the new board, all training hours for fiscal year 25 were completed or have been exceeded. And right now, the current governing board members are all well on their way to completing our fiscal year 26 hours as well. I just wanted to kind of also note in this that
We recognize that PC is critical mandate to ensure a robust and stable governance for all public schools in New Mexico. And we share your commitment to providing a secure and consistent environment for our students and staff. I want to offer my strong assurance that the current governing board members of Six Directions are deeply engaged. They have been operating with a clear and shared vision for the school's future, as some of you may have heard from them from this morning's public comment. And I, as board chair, I have immense faith in our current board members. We've been unified. We work together for the best of our students. And we also share that restorative process in everything that we do. We think about everything first before we act, and then we plan. And then when we do, we go as within the 4 directions in the Indigenous aspect, which is thinking first, planning, and then also after that would be the living part, and then the 4th is the sehasin, which is the reflection. So as governing board members, we have significant strength. Our members have essential combination of extensive experience, as you have heard earlier, of their, some of them have been educators for a very long time. They all have Indigenous seasoned wisdom, knowledge. They have strong community ties and committed leadership. And this diversity within our governing board ensures that our decisions are holistic and culturally relevant in reference to on how we apply this to our leadership with the school and then also to their students. We're always open to listen to students. This year, there was a student walkout earlier this year, and one of my other governing board member, we attended that and sat down with the students as the same process that they've been doing within the school with the restorative process and the peace table. We highly encourage that, and that's what we did. Was we sat down with the students, we let them provide information, we heard them out, went back to grounding of really what our mission is on how as adults we also include them as students and hear them out, and just talking together, working things out, coming to a consensus of how to do, how to take the lead on issues or anything that comes up. Also to commitment to professional development, we have prioritized preparation and alignment. The entire board has again successfully completed all the required training hours. Right now are participating in several focus. We have several retreats that we've done, workshops that are designed to solidify our understanding of governance, finance, and our shared strategic direction. So that we've had a lot of support in areas of training. We also are beginning to develop a strong draft. We've actually developed a strong draft of a strategic plan early this year and have formally established our core values, ensuring that every board is strategically on the same page regarding the school's mission. We also are dedicating now and drafting a comprehensive board handbook. We have also drafted other policies, board policies, and during these retreats that we had, just an operational guide to clarify our roles, and also just to have some resources for consistent governance moving forward. So we have been partners with PCNM for board trainings as well, and then we'll be working with NISN to address additional training and support needed. We also had other partnership with Archuleta as well during the last year. And then most of all, as a board, we also encourage community and student input. For that to happen, we always encourage that communication is very vital and important between the board and the school, the head administrator, even the community, parents, and students. We always encourage, we're open to that. So yeah, in conclusion, the work completed to date really demonstrates that this board is not merely is proactively building the operational and strategic infrastructure necessary for long-term stability and to the success of our Six Directions Indigenous School. With that, I'll go ahead and I don't know if there's a continuance by Becca to continue? Or if that's the, sorry, I'm just looking at the slides. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much the all of it. And we're just dedicated to ensuring that Six Directions remain strong, stable, and have a high quality educational institution. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, protection. We are an Indigenous serving school governance instability is a colonial pattern decisions made without transparency, without community, and without process. We know our history, we know data. We have noticed there have been several recent meetings without a public link at the top. Students-led, academically strong, and culturally safe. To make that possible, we are asking you, the PEC, to place every governance condition available under authority because we love this school, because we built this progress, because we deserve an education protected by stable and lawful governance. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I think that, is that the end of the presentation? All right, great. Thank you. All right, that'll take us to item 5, PEC questions. I saw Commissioner Beck's hand go up, and I'll start writing down lists, so have at it.
Thank you for that awesome presentation. You guys did a great job, and it's obvious that you have a lot of heartfelt emotion for your school, and it sounds like a great community. It's very impressive for sure. And it looks like your academics have improved dramatically. I think that's great. But I still have a concern in terms of getting even better in terms of your academic proficiency, especially in math. And I was just curious as to what your kind of specific, detailed strategy is. I know you only have 69 students or 64 from the Vista within 6 grades, which obviously is a challenge to be able to deal with the student-teacher ratio and for 6 grades and for all the different core subjects and the other pieces. But on the math side, I'm just curious as to what your specific strategy is to improve math, because I thought I saw 3% proficiency, up from 0. Bingo, good. But I'm just curious in terms of that. If you could briefly, just give us the strategy behind what you're planning to do.
Since 2022, we have not had a math teacher, and we just hired a math teacher that went through a very rigorous interview process, but came really highly applauded and has already changed so much with the math instruction and is fully on board with the non-negotiable Kagan model, cooperative learning, Indigenous centered, putting all of the language, everything into it. And so we're really excited because we already had a beautiful week and it's only her first week.
So is she teaching all grade levels?
Yes.
Okay. And in those pods, it sounded to me like you have multiple grade levels within those pods based on where their academic proficiencies are now, and so that is multi-grade level.
Correct.
In terms of that.
Yes.
Right. I also saw real quick someplace, I don't even remember where I was trying to look, where you integrate AI into your curriculum. Is that?
We use it to decolonize it. We also use it as a coaching platform sometimes, but we don't rely on it mostly because we rely on the Navajo language storytelling first.
Yeah, okay.
But we're also
Well,
kind of worried about the law.
I've been retired from teaching for 4 years, and AI is something I never had to deal with, happily, never had to deal with. So I was just curious how you integrated that into your curriculum. Okay, well, I just want to congratulate you guys. And students, you did an awesome job, really, incredible. Not only the ones that came up here, but the ones that talked before. So heartfelt congratulations. Thanks.
Commissioner Taylor?
You looked that way, and I was like, okay.
Little fake out.
Yeah. All right. Can I say that I'm extremely pleased with the improvements you made in academics in such a short time. So I'm excited to see if we remain on that trajectory, where you guys are going to be in 3 or 4 years. You know, we didn't really address what the plan was for a head administrator going forward. Is that an appropriate time for us to talk about that right now? Okay. Do you guys have what the plan is and so forth? I would say that, you know, from the outside looking in, you can't go, Rebecca. You know, you've done it seems like you've made significant changes, and I love the heart that you project, and the commitment that you project. So, I mean, it's up to you, obviously. But I just want to know what the plan is going forward.
Yeah, certainly. Madam Chair, members of the commission. First of all, Daniel Avisoto, using the classical Scotch and Cuban spellings. General counsel to the school. So, first of all, it's, I mean, I think it's really clear that Ms. Naya's passion and strengths, she is an incredible educator. And has really brought that in an infectious way throughout the entire school community. That said, she's at this point asked to be relieved of the administrative responsibilities. So she's also very graciously agreed to stay on until the school is able to find an interim head administrator. And so the board is working through that process right now. Appreciate the grace that she is giving in terms of the time frame, and at the same time not wanting to be abusive of that. You know, I will tell you that ultimately, once an administrative or an interim head administrator, which will open up the door for more permanent search, is in place, you know, that will be a negotiation between them and Ms. Naya, but certainly we would love to be able to continue to benefit from her academic passions.
Sure. What are the options for schooling for young people in that area? What other options besides the school are there in that area?
We're adjacent to Gallup-McKinley County Schools, which has a large number of Native students, but most of our students have come from those schools. There's also tribal schools that our students have also come from, but they're very far away. Our students travel within like a 70-mile radius to get to our school, from like as far as Tohatchee and stuff. And then there's some local charter schools, only 2 within our area, Hoosier Academy and Middle College High School. And then in Zuni Public School District, there are no options except parochial schools. And if our students have been kicked out of there, there's no other option.
So one more comment in regards to this, you know, into this about this transition. You know, I mean, I think that there has been established a obviously a trend towards academics improving. And I just hate to lose that in the midst of a transition. I hate to lose that because y'all have made such outstanding progress in a short amount of time. So I think that should be obviously a huge focus. I love the fact that it is very culturally centered, and it should be, you know. I love that. But at the same time, I sure don't want to lose that trajectory that you're on as far as academic improvement. Just one other comment for me. Trying not to get emotional about this, but Harley stole my heart. You know? The fact that the things that young man endured in public schools, the fact that he's found a safe place in this environment and in the school, I, I can't let, you know, I can't say no to this, you know, to what y'all are doing because you answering the call. So sorry.
Commissioner Gibson?
So thanks, everyone. This has been incredibly impactful, always is. I mean, I've been with this school through a lot of ups and downs. So I really do appreciate this. You know, it's an example of how profoundly kind and generous and open people can be when they're seen and heard, and how incredibly unjust we can be when we're not being treated fairly and we lash out and we take our anger out on everyone else because no one's seeing us and hearing us. And for individuals to be able to come up and to now have this space. This is why we're all here. And, you know, we can't make up for all the injustices people have endured over generations, but it doesn't mean we continue to commit them. And we have to acknowledge them and move forward and hopefully move forward together. And I hope that the local school district can at some point in their time see and hear some of this. Because this has been an age-long problem. So I do appreciate this and applaud every advance that has happened. I mean, these are incredible changes that have taken place. And I share the same concern and hope that those changes can continue. My only question is, through these changes, your retention rate isn't the greatest. So where's the disconnect? Because we acknowledge the good things that are going on in the school. So what's the challenge? Is it, is it a family challenge? Is it a transportation challenge? What's that gap there?
So Six Directions Indigenous School does not own its building or the land, and the landowner did not have an interest in like a lease purchase agreement. So we've been renting ever since the school started, but that's a barrier because it never allowed us to open up to capital outlays to be able to be eligible for transportation because we don't own the building. And that's been a huge barrier, but it's also been an inequitable barrier because we've gone to the State Affairs Committee with this to explain that this is an actual significant thing that impacts specifically charter schools because it's so hard to be able to purchase land when you don't. And you can't use funds to purchase land unless you make like a capital outlay request, which is what hopefully that will to be able to start exceeding. But that's been the really critical and only source of reason for why people need to go to places where they have transportation.
Okay, Thanks. I thought that was probably it, because your attendance rate is great. But yeah, that retention rate. So I'm just going to assume that at this point in time, your audit and finance committees are meeting. I figured that had fixed with
They are,
the
yes.
changes.
Yes.
So, and then I just have one other question now. There was an audit find, I believe it was an audit finding on the management of grant funds. Is that because they hadn't been expended?
Yes. But in response to that, I created a beautiful tracker that now is the sole jealousy of the PED finance department because it manages grants specifically through every single federal grant we receive, plus all of the things that we encumber on. We also created a background automation system that pulls all of the PRs, POs, invoices, contracts from my emails and places it into the tracker so that it's easy to track. And then also with additional meetings with the VHO group that helps us place those in the correct spots because it wasn't quite almost not managing funds. It was putting everything in operational when we could have used it for the grants. So we've cleaned that up incredibly so.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Klasha-Shilich.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. You've gone through a tremendous amount. And with all that you've gone through, there's been, I'm sure, and evident here, a tremendous amount of growth. And this experience will, thrust you into a whole different sphere, which is what we're hearing now. I'm coming from, excuse me, let me introduce myself. I'm Navajo from Gali'ahe, New Mexico, and I'm Twitukonsha, Kintlachini, Bashichin, Tinsakani, Deshiche, Dohoshkan, Hatzo, Deshanele. And I think just listening to the clans here, I'm an in-law to a couple of people here. But thankfully, we're on the outside, so I don't have to pay your lunch or your hotel bill. Okay. So I'm looking at your scores and looking at what's been going on the past since I've been here. You've been struggling. I have a couple of questions, and I guess my first question is this. I'm understanding that because you're a charter school, you have natives, students from different cultures. And I know that the public bar, meaning us, is set according to what you say, how your school is going to function. And then you look at the native bar, the Navajo, Zuni, and the other tribes, and the bar is set very high. And then the expectation for results is like now. And so having to juggle between all of that is really a chore, a huge chore. So in looking at your scores, looking at what you're going through, I can see a lot of that factoring in. And being that you're new, new in the sense that you haven't existed as long as a lot of the other schools surrounding you have. So I'm wondering, where are your students coming from? The ones who come to Six Directions. And the reason I'm asking this is because I'm wondering, depending upon where they're coming from, will really dictate how you teach them. So that's why my question, are you in remediation? Are they at grade level? Can they come as an 8th grader or whatever the grade level is and function totally at that grade level? That's kind of what I'm looking at.
So the student geographically, they come from the farthest is Coyote Canyon, Tohatchee, Church Rock, Band, Lake, Ayambato, South in Zuni, Jones Ranch, Vanderwagon, and then we've had students in Yatahe and Chichilta, and then we've had students that coming from Rock Springs area, and all of the students have come from different types of schools. The majority are GMCS schools. There's quite a few that come from tribally controlled schools. And when we've noticed a trend over the last 5 years, the renewal cycle, that when students are entering a district, they're entering at an average of the first percentile, which means that the average percentile is supposed to be 50. And so students within like 40 to 60 is at the average level, which would be on grade level for the age that they're testing in at that time. And then below that would be significantly below grade level in like elementary terms, they say like 1 year or 2 years below. Our students are entering their school at a pattern of like severely below grade level. But the beautiful thing about Six Directions, though, is that when they're entering in this space, we also show extreme growth where they're within one semester growing like 3 grade levels, or within 1 year making like 40 to average 70 percentile gains, which means that going from like between the first and 10th percentile to the 50 to 70th percentile. We also have quite a number of gifted students, and those students also enter at a gifted level, but are also making the same amount of exponential gains. So they'll enter at like the 78th percentile, but are now performing at the 90th. So the pattern of growth is still a constant. That's been a constant even when they come from tribally controlled schools, from the district, from other states, and then from the other charter schools.
Thank you. Madam Chair and Six Directions, I'm listening to this, and my background as a special education teacher, I got to the point in teaching of looking at where my students were coming from as to, and I was able to identify probably what each one needed. And a lot of times that really holds you to address the student at their particular level. And so I'm wondering how much of this really falls into some of the areas that you've had difficulty in academically, because sometimes I receive students who are very low in reading or couldn't read at all. And it wasn't because they had a disability academically, it was because they just weren't taught or had that exercise of reading. And like you mentioned, there was a leap in improvement. And being able to zero into those areas helped tremendously. So I was wondering, do you experience a lot of that?
Yes, and I think if you disaggregate the data further, the students that have federally binding documents of individualized education plans are also on the same trajectory of growth. But we also are cognizant that the majority of students, especially SPED students, ELL, at-risk students, low income, have been horrifically treated in other school districts. We have stories of students that have been retained 4 times and were never on a SPED diagnosis or evaluation. We have students that were placed in a room and told that you can either discipline, have or that have not gone like on this, that they're told you can either withdraw from the district or you can go to the local detention center, which is an adult jail, and you can learn from there. And that's how our students are treated when they come to Six Directions, the majority. We only have about maybe less than 5 students who come because of word of mouth, like we've heard of how it's been and they haven't been from another district. That's what Six Directions is. And I think that to speak to like Hollywood or the other students, when they took their own student interviews, every single student has come from a place where they've either been suspended up to 12 times. We have students that have been retained multiple years. We have students that enter at 20 years old, classified as a 9th grader. All of those things are happening, but there's still this exponential growth underneath. And it's solely centered and it's solely centered on decolonial of education and then pushing back on the systems that created the conditions that they even came from.
Thank you. So that gives me an understanding of what's going on with the students you're receiving. What about the students leaving Six Directions? where do they tend, where are they going? What are they prepared for and what have you seen? I don't know if you follow them, but I'm curious about what they're doing and what they're capable of doing after Six Directions.
100% of our graduates have a plan for success after post-secondary, and they do their exit plans. The majority actually go to college, and majority that we that like we have kids that school actually go to middle college, high school, and there's a lot of students that leave because of sports center school because we have no transportation, and some of the there is a lot of art-driven things. Like we've had students that, because of the Knowledge Keeper Hour, have unleashed incredible gifts and are winning talent shows for artwork. We have students that go to college, which has a high number of students, the branch, and then just enter the workforce. But they come back, they check in with us.
Okay. I come from a direction where academics is very, very important, mainly for the future of our students who are graduating from high school. Graduating from high school. And working with San Juan Community College in Farmington, we have found that a lot of our Native students are really low in exactly the areas that are indicated here: English and math and reading. And the comprehension of reading, the different components of reading are very low. Those are areas that I'm very, you see it when you go to McDonald's. Some students aren't able to give the correct change. You see the language proficiency low when a student does not comprehend what you're asking for. I mean, those are very basic areas, and those are my concerns. I see this a lot. And a lot of the students we've worked with at San Juan College have indicated that they had not received the kind of instruction that would provide that skill for them. So that's where I'm coming from in my questions. And I think in looking at Six Directions getting on your feet, I think these are areas that as I'm looking at the school and as I'm looking at you building the muscle for the school, I feel that these are areas that really need to be concentrated in, and it looks like you're doing it. And I recognize that you can't do it with a lot of times a school year. It'll take a couple of school years, but at least you're targeting it, you're concentrating on it, and you really do have a tough job. And I know that with a lot of our Native students, parents, the thinking still remains that here's my child, you educate. And then when it comes to parent-teacher meetings, they're like, wait a minute, why am I here? That's your responsibility. I thought we had moved away from a lot of that, but it's still there. I see it slowly changing, but to the parents who still have that thinking, and my grandparents and my mother and my dad both had that thinking as well. Now, my thinking has changed to where I assume responsibility. I understand what parent-teacher meetings are about and why. It isn't to attack the parent. It isn't to condone the parent for the lack of learning on the student's part. It's for that communication. And so I think that thinking is still catching on. I was working with some students just last week, and the mother chewed me out, thinking I was running the school, chewed me out and said, this is your job. What we're here talking about is your job. And I thought, oh, that thinking is still there. So do you deal with a lot of that?
I've had tension with families before over just things, but we just listen, and they always end up loving us. But we have very strong relationships with our They come for sheep butcherings and for the feast days and for the dances. And they're just so like, how it is to celebrate the child. And then the growth that we have, it's always a celebratory moment to be able to have parent-teacher conferences. And we kind of treat them like home visits where we want to sit down and just have coffee and just, usually it intertwines into storytelling of like, we have a majority of our students are raised by grandparents. So the grandparents like to talk and like to say like where we come from and who's in the family and what's informed everything, what concerns are, and you kind of have to follow it because it weaves all over when. And that's kind of, there's generally, it's one of the things with the family. We also have the restorative justice embedded with school, like the peace tables with parents, and then students were like, we can never do it with them again. We needs to like listen and not have assumptions and stuff. And so it was the students that were leading them into having those types of conversations that promote hearing and listening and seeing someone else's perspective. And now the parents are getting really adept at it. It's also culture. We have a lot of students that come from high religious households in Zuni in the Navajo Nation, like they know. And so that informs how we enter spaces too. Because whenever there was tension with parents, they would always say, let's see, like what to say, and there's like purification, there's healing, there's not being scared of what being direct. It also helps us be better administrators. It also lends to the parents feeling seen, valued, and heard too. So everybody kind of belongs. We're like over there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that because it helps me in understanding the growth and seeing that families are moving. I mean, that excitement and all, but it also reveals the kind of parents you have who are who have their students going to 6 directions. And thank you very much. Thank you all.
Commissioner Carrillo?
Hi, I'm Commissioner Carrillo, and I represent most of the northern counties to Colorado, except the far west of the state. And thank you very much. You've traveled a long way to get here, and we appreciate very much when people are here in person, and especially students. We love to hear from you, and just very grateful to hear your stories. Harley, I think a lot of us, well, I mean, I know Michael, Commissioner Taylor mentioned it, and just, and I've heard this not just from you, Harley, but from others in Gallup McKinley schools, that it's a hellacious environment, especially for Native Americans. And it's just, it makes me really angry, actually, that it's not addressed enough and it's not, that they're not called out the way they need to be called out on a regular basis. And I appreciate very much, Steve, in addressing those issues. And with what Commissioner Gibson said, just the multi-generational and over the centuries challenges that Native Americans have to face. And I made a note, let's see, I'll get to that later. And I just really understand how you're focused on that, how you're just really, no matter what's going on around you, your commitment to yourselves and your culture. And you're not, you're not going to be moved from that, regardless of what's going on around you. And I just want to, I mean, I've come a long way, I think, in 5 years. And I think most of it has to do with a person who's here today supporting you, and that would be former Commissioner Brower, in terms of modifying my thinking. And I think that Ms. Burt as well has not called me out on, but maybe made me recognize some of my old thinking relative to being on the commission. It's got to be this way. It's taxpayer money. We have to make sure these different goals are met. If they're not met, then the school's not performing the way we need it to. And if they're not, then they need to be non-renewed. I mean, I really came in with that kind of there wasn't, I did, with not much gray. It was just, because I think sometimes in New Mexico especially, and I'm not saying this at all about your school, but in New Mexico especially, and I've been here 34 years, so I can say this. I'm not somebody who just arrived off the, the turnip truck and is casting judgment. No, after 34 years, I think we, especially in the PED, really, everything related to public ed, we accept mediocrity as the norm. And we don't strive to be as good as we know we can be. And that's what I see in your school. And that's where the colonial, I just hate it when somebody says, Steve, that's such a colonialist idea. Because I feel like, oh my God, because I don't think of myself that way. But thank you, Alan. Thank you, Commissioner Burt. And so what I have here is profound authenticity in everything you do. And I just want to kind of acknowledge that that's something that I pick up here. A couple, the things that I heard from the students, really feeling safe. That was huge. Feeling safe to be who you are, being seen and heard. And then your instruction and the way you're guided by the adults will say is tailored to who you are, not who somebody wants you to be, but we're going to grow you where you are. That's kind of this, the sense that I got. I was really pleased when Denisha came up toward the end with another young lady and really, I think he really stuck it to the board saying, we want board accountability. We want you to be as vigilant as you can to make sure the board keeps up with what it's supposed to do. And on the slide that said you expect them to have all of their credits by the 120th day, I'm very impressed by that. Because let's face it, we know, because we're making boards a focus now, how many boards are lackadaisical about that. And you can see it in the way they're governing their schools. So thank you very much for that, and for Denisha and your colleague in calling that out. And then I have to acknowledge Caleb and your amazing voice. That deep, I mean, and thank you for sharing that. It's very moving. And I don't think I've ever heard a voice as deep as yours and that just resonated. So I just want to thank you for your courage in bringing your gift to our commission. So I've said this before with a couple of schools where, and this is kind of where I came into this. You look at a school on paper and you see what's going on, you see what they're doing, and my attitude, seriously, they want another 5 years? Give me a break. It's like, at what point do we stop carrying, these schools? And because that's that whole black-white taxpayer thing running through my brain. And I'm going to ask Dr. Russell a question, if she wouldn't mind coming up in a moment. But I want to ask Rebecca, I'm sorry, Miss Neha, right? Am I saying that correctly? Nahe, I'm sorry. And a question, I need clarity on your relationship with the school. I know what it's been. I know that you are a very inspirational leader, not only to the people that work for you, but to the kids. I need clarity on what the future relationship is. I understand where I'm at right now is my understanding is you want to give up all this administrative stuff and focus on teaching. So how do you see your future relationship with the school?
I'm a mother of a student at the school, Caleb.
Oh, no kidding.
And I was part of the original co-founders. They used to do talking circles around the community. And I was there before it even opened to give feedback because I was working at Zuni Public School District at the time. And then I found Zuni is so deeply rooted because it's connected to me as a Hopi. Out of all the Pueblos, we're the furthest away from the Grands, and we still retain our ancestral calendars. And now we have children that just entered Zuni Public School District, and the attendance laws are strict for 5-year-olds that they will take you to truancy court if you miss too many days. And I came to Six Directions because substitute. And so I was just teaching science. And so I got to see some of Tanisha talked about the sterile hallways and the lack of joy, the lack of laughter, the lack of talking. And my son was in there since 6th grade. And seeing how the vision of those co-founders and those talking circle spaces with educators, leaders, how far away it went, it was really heartbreaking. And then I got to join NISM for a Growing Together Fellowship to see what other schools in the network were doing at South Dakota says, and what their vision was and how far it had gotten. And there was like this like, oh my gosh, if I was the leader, here's what I would do. And then it just kind of was like happenstance. I usually joke that I feel like Legally Blonde when she's like, I'm a head administrator. And then but to come from we are, it's some of the students that are in here were seniors and I taught them when they were in 4th grade. Some of the communities that I've seen what happened to them at the district level, some of these students, like I know their families deeply because, you know, like they're connected to my children in Zuni. All of those things make me part of that community driven model. I see my relationship with the school as just like my dream would be to be able to tour. So I had when I first took this job and I didn't know what it was. I wish that someone could just give me how to do parents and who parents and teach them what a community looks like from a leader that has the courage to lead from an authentic route that's not going to also be in that system. And future, I'd really love to have more Six Directions, like for all of those places that are so invisibilized and marginalized and child, it's like so, I wish that just, and that's what I tell the students, demand excellence out of us, like demand the best out of us because you deserve it and demand it, like fight for it and fight and look at others who are just as hard we have movements and change things. And, you know, like there was prophecy spoken about the 7th generation that in 7 generations after European contact, the youth of that generation would rise up and fight for their rights and all come under the color of the same tree. But like this is that 7th generation that classrooms right now that these movements can see it and in such a different way. That's my position, is to keep pushing of like, who are we restrained? And students have already shown us that. So I'm using, so like, I really wish we could start new charters that give that authentic sovereignty and give that autonomy and give that back to what basically.
I just wrote that down. Who are we if we're unrestrained? Really brilliant. And I concur with Commissioner Taylor. I mean, all of you, you have to do with whatever you need to do with your life. But as you've been told by others on this commission, and I'm sure in other environments, you're exceptional. And I, based on what I know, I would just love you to stay in a role at the school to continue to inspire in whatever way works for you and makes you happy and makes the board happy. So thank you very much for everything that you've done. I was impressed about the restorative justice piece. So Dr. Russell, my question for you is, you recommended approval, and I imagine there's going to be conditions based on academics, but you for 5 years. Why 5 years? Why not 3? Why not 5 with an extension?
Chair Burke, Commissioner Creo, that is a great question. My Charter Schools Division's default has been a 5-year term, just because it allows a longer record of performance. I have long thought that and I've actually discussed this with Ms. Barnes. What it says in statute is a charter school can have a contract for up to 5 years. And non-lawyer me interprets that as you can renew them, you can give them up to 5 more years. You could extend the term of the contract for up to 5 years. I would actually love it if that became the practice. At renewals, we don't press a reset button. We don't have a new term because right now, year 5 of every contract term is sort of a black hole. It's the year that schools are negotiating renewal, and there's no annual report. There's no accountability, to be perfectly honest. I would love it if and if the statute allows it. I mean, the way I read the statute, it it it's in alignment with the spirit of the law to just, I'm going to renew this school for another, I'm going to amend the contract for an extra year or an extra 2 years. And then we look at a genuine 5-year record of performance or a 6-year or a 7-year record of performance. That would be I mean, if we could do that, then there is no reason to want that 5-year term as a default, as long as there's a rolling 5-year record of performance that the commission can look at.
Thank you. I think it's a default of you see whether you have a SEPA, and in most cases, you're not going to see that with NGOs or anything. I mean, it's based, contract renewals are based on performance. You know, whether, I always use athletics as the metaphor or as the analogy. You know, you expect, let's face it, anybody's following football right now, a lot of coaches are being fired in college and everything else because they're not living up to what they're supposed to do, right? And then you get renewals. And they're going to be bought out, their contracts and everything else. And I'm not saying that I'm suggesting that here by any means. I just don't like that. I don't like that anything is a default because you're tying our hands, not you or the CSD, but when we say that we can only do this, well, that's ridiculous. There's no room because for me that doesn't provide room to be creative. For here I know there was another school several years ago. We did a 3-year with conditions because there were so many red flags. That's not the case here, but there were so many red flags. We did a 3-year contract with conditions. The biggest red flag to me here is lack of stability at the board and leadership level, lack of stability with a head administrator. And the fact that even though Commissioner Taylor referred to it, is that he loved the trend. 1 year to me does not make a trend. 2 years can be a trend. And then 3 years. And so, my feeling is I want to see you continue on this growth trajectory where you're either maintaining, if you're maintaining, you go from 0 to 3, whatever, someone could say, yeah, that's 300%. Well, you went from 0 to 3, okay, let's not try to inflate this. It is what it is. But if you can then go from, 3 to 7, 7 to 12, 12 to 15, that's really wonderful incremental growth that speaks a lot to student engagement and professional development for teachers to make sure that everybody, what is that phrase, all ships are risen by whatever? You all know what I'm thinking about. And a rising tide lifts all boats. You.
Actually, first of all, yes, I think it's all ships, but nonetheless, I guess I've 2 observations, if I may, just real quick, in terms of
course,
kind of where you're headed. One of them is to the extent that one of the conditions is continued improvement in reading. Specifically, I want to call that out, is recognize that the reading scores are exclusively based on testing in the dominant language of English, which is not always the skill set of everyone that we have. I do want to point out, though, that as our head administrator has really doubled down on the focus of teaching Danae and teaching Zuni, the English reading scores have improved, right? And one of the things, as a former language teacher myself, one of the things that we know, although people historically have tended to operate in just the opposite, is that by focusing on someone's heritage language, their in this case very much so their indigenous self and communication, you improve communication in all languages. And so that's that is one of the things that I just really wanted to call out, is the emphasis in this school of Dene and of Zuni linguistically has been helping the reading scores, which are not in those languages. The other thing is, though, that understand that one of the challenges that this school will always face is we don't start in the kindergarten. And so as Commissioner Klostasilich was inquiring about, in terms of where do our students come from, every year we've got a new cohort of students who are coming in, many of them in the 10th percentile or less, and we have to start over. And to the extent that we're able to make improvements with those students, the next year we have a new cohort of students who are coming in the 10th percentile or fewer, and we have to start over. And so while we do want to continue to build upon what we've been learning and the amazing job that has been happening academically at the school, also recognize that every single year it's a reset, because we're not starting at the kindergarten year where we can help to mold from the beginning.
Thank you for both the comments. And I know when Walatoa was one of the first Native schools that I was dealing with, that's one of the things that Arrow was saying, that the kids that come to him in 9th grade, they're often like 4 or 5 grade levels behind, and he didn't have control over any of that. But now he's got to have he's got to really, do the work at the 9th and 10th grade level to bring things up. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you for the comment. I want to commend the school on that you've created an environment for that 7th generation, right? To be able to be so vocal and so active and expressive and emboldened, okay? And so, hats off to you, because I wish it was that way much, much more in our culture in general, and in our high schools, that they weren't just automatons, but they were really responding, because that's what happens. We train automatons through the system, but they were responding to what's going on around them, because they should be kind of the angriest generation right now and rising up. And so I appreciate very much the spirit of protest. What did I write down? Walkout, protest, constructive engagement, and conflict resolution. How important that is. So, I'll be interested to see what others say and what motions are carried forward. Dr. Russell, thank you very much for your comments, because I think that could be a really good idea about the contract extension. Just having us look at different things more creatively. The other thing I wrote down here, and I think it's really important to prepare, and I'm not to prepare kids for, and I'm going to say, and I'm not saying this as in a limited way, but for citizenship in the environment that they're in. Because one way or another, we're all in the United States, and we all have to deal with everything that's going on around us. So it's very beneficial on the civics level to know how to address the shortcomings and to use people like Mr. Ivy Soto, who are learned in law and everything else, to help move groups forward. And we can do that when we really know how that whole system works, and of course, without abandoning anything that we believe in. So just thank you very much for all of your comments, and I am going to come back to this. Who are we if we are unrestrained? There are nuggets sometimes from every meeting that for me, that's going to be one that I'm taking away and that I'm never going to forget. So thank you for that. And thank you everyone for being here.
Commissioner Obenshain?
Thank you. Good morning. I wish I could be up there with you all today. I had an unfortunate situation happen. I have an ice pack here on my ribs. And I'm really disappointed that I can't be there to hear everyone. Not really so many questions as much as some comments. I think what I've taken away today is the idea that your school embodies the concept that you can't teach them until you reach them. And clearly that is what you all have done and focused on. And that vision is just amazing to me. And I'd ask you all to fact check me on this one, but I do think that the research, the educational research, says that it takes 1 to 3 years to implement a vision, 3 to 5 years to institutionalize it, and 5 to 8 years to see results. And I think the turning point with the student walkouts and your response to that is like ground zero, where you're starting, and institutionalizing that vision will take some time. But I think the results that you're already seeing, I think will just continue to expand and grow. And I just want to say, if we can't renew a school like this, I'm not sure what we're doing. I just wholeheartedly believe in your vision, the work that you're doing. I am a little concerned about the transition in administration, because I think whatever has been brought forward is clearly working. And I just commend you on your work and your commitment. And I can't get emotional because it'll hurt my ribs, but I just, again, thank you for your support of the culture, New Mexico, and all of your students. So congratulations to you all. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Ingham?
Yeah, thank you, guys. I do want to say, in regard to the tension that we have between boards and head administrators, this is a tension that's a good thing. It needs to happen, but you guys have to work your way through that. And in your specific case, with a whole board transition, a new board, this is a really difficult relationship to manage. But I think you guys have those skill sets to do that and to work your way through this. I think that you have a great start and a great story to tell. And you know what, my frame of reference is biblical. The idea of trials are always the best way to learn. And so God puts us through those, so we will learn the things that we need to know. For my focus, though, is your structural problem with the capital outlay funding. That's kind of my thing. I want you to know that our commission is well aware of the issues that we have, especially for state-sponsored charter schools within that capital outlay format. And I want to tell you that I'm committed to driving a new time where the Capital Outlay Commission or committee will have to address our charter schools in a different manner, because this is clearly not working. And so I just want you to know there's a commitment. I believe your situation, I mean, in general, we have a problem with that. Your situation is even more complicated. And so I would ask that if you guys would, at some point, get with me with a letter or something describing your situation. So when we're going to, I'm the representative on the PSCOC. When I go to them to make this demand, request, whatever we're going to do, we need to have all the schools, the different situations. Each one's different. But we have to make structural changes that are probably not going to accommodate everybody. But I really believe we need to know your situation so we can really address it so that we can have equitable funding for all the schools across the state. Believe me, we do recognize that. I just want you to know that we're addressing it as fast as we possibly can. Thank you.
And if I just may real quick, Commissioner, so first of all, the landlord has indicated a willingness to sell the property if we can come up with the funding for that. But as our head administrator pointed out, he doesn't want to be committed for the next 30 years in a lease purchase, right? And so that is one of the things that we're trying to navigate is instead of being able to do an LPA, is to find a way to get enough capital where we can just simply purchase the property where we're at. So that is one of the things that we're working on right now. The other thing is on a related issue is on the transportation. There's an interesting idiosyncrasy in the law, which is that a charter school can work with the district for collaborative transportation, but a charter school cannot work with another charter school for collaborative transportation. That's why I'm bringing it up. The language in the statute, they didn't think about it when they wrote it, and so it just simply said can work with a district, and the PED Transportation Department reads that the way it's written, as they probably should, but it is so. For example, this last year, you guys had a hearing with Hojo about some of their audit findings that were due to some of the issues with transportation. Actually, those audit findings would not have happened if they'd been allowed to collaborate. They wanted to collaborate with Middle College. They wanted to look at whether or not to collaborate with Six Directions on charter-based transportation in the Gallup-McKinley area. And had they been able to do that, they would have had the ridership that would have taken care of a lot of the issues that led to those audit findings that I think this commission appropriately found was a one-time deal based on that. But that would have been resolved. But also, it would have given us at this school, it would give other schools opportunities to look at transportation options that would not otherwise exist.
Okay, is this a statutorial problem or an interpretation problem? Interpretation. This is what I found is that we have a lot of interpretation problems that can be resolved without legislative action. And so if you can help me bring that to the PSCOC, I'd really appreciate that, because I think those are things that we don't need to have. We don't need to have those problems driving real structural problems within the charter school network. This is crazy. So I'd be happy to bring that forward if you would assist me with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. It helps having had the experience that you have to be able to offer information, recommendations like that to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I do have some questions, but I'm going to probably give a little monologue for a second first. This school, I mean, I'm not going to take it for granted that this school is having students that are able to come up and articulate better than most adults can, the way that a school is affecting them. It's so impressive. So I just want to say thank you first to the students for being here, for being able to speak the way you do, for being able to advocate the way you do. You are teaching of older generations things that they didn't know they could even do. And so I do think like hearing that there's a prophecy about the seventh generation makes complete sense. And I actually do think like, I remember when I first I taught Gen Z students and I was like, oh, we're good. Oh, we're fine. Our society is going to be fine because of these kids. I deeply believed that 10 years ago. And it just makes sense. So first of all, thank you for that. Because it's not even, you don't use just emotion, which you do well, but also just the logic behind it and the spirit behind it is so grounded and sound. Makes it really hard for people to argue with you, right? When you have those kind of argument skills. So thank you for that. I also want to say, I mean, this school to me is a very clear example of chain breaking. And I think one of the things that I think people think about when they hear of chain breaking, or they think of disrupting system, like really studying systems and then trying to disrupt a system, it sounds very brave and exciting. And it's not. It's actually incredibly painful. It is an incredibly painful process to break chains. It is so hard. Our brains, our bodies are so wired for comfort and steadiness that anytime we're breaking that off a little bit in our brains, our bodies reject it right away. I mean, we do not want to do it. It feels good to have steadiness. So once again, for the administrative team, for the students, for all the leadership here to be so supportive of that, to go through such a painful process and then still keep trudging along, I'm incredibly grateful to this school because, like the speakers who came to represent the Navajo Nation, I do see this as a incredible leading example of how school should be. Not just because you're embracing your culture, but because it's embodying your culture. It's not just accepting it, it's actually living it. And that is two very different things. You know, we can say, yes, you're accepted. Yes, this is a safe space. But unless it's actually felt, it doesn't change. It doesn't change, and it doesn't impact people. It doesn't impact children the way that we think it's going to until we actually can feel it. And that's what, once again, I'm incredibly grateful to what this school has done and what the students have done over the past couple of years in this school, because I do see if this trajectory continues, this will be not just a shining school for the Zuni and Navajo Nation people, but for the country. I do see this being a space that people would come and learn of how to actually show students that who they are matters, focus on that, and everything follows. It's actually not that complicated. It's not that complex. It's actually pretty simple. And the fact that the students are able to lead so much in this school, it's impressive, and it makes sense to me why you're seeing, at the end of the day, the academic outcomes, they're going to come. I don't even, when I've visited with teachers, especially when it comes to like standardized testing, right? It's like, there's this wall built up, there's this, you know, and whatever those results are, we're going to fight them. You know, like we're just going to fight them. So instead of, and to me, when once again, I'm very committed to supporting this school continue its trajectory over this next contract term, because I do see by the time 5 more years comes, I deeply believe if you keep focusing on the inputs, the outputs are just going to come. It's just going to happen. You're going to see those results on no matter what test you take. It doesn't matter the test. It's not going to, because the base is so, the core is there. And that's what students learn from, is the core, not from an assessment. I mean, they don't learn from assessment. They learn from the core of what you're doing. So seeing that gets flipped in this school, I hope I can anticipate the trajectory continuing. So once again, I love being able to use schools as, oh, hey, you know, all the other schools that say, well, we get students in like this. Well, we get students in who've done this. You know what I didn't hear from this school? That it's their fault, that it's the kid's fault. It's not the kid's fault. And and that's what I think is the difference between how this school is operating versus many that I hear, right? They acknowledge this is where our students are coming in, but then it's the student's fault, and it's the family's fault, and it's someone else's fault. This school, I not even a glimmer of it, not even a glimmer of it's the kid's fault, it's the parents' fault, it's anyone else. Nope, it is what it is, right? Like there's an attitude of it is what it is, and you know what? These kids deserve better than what they had, and we're going to give it to them. And we're going to allow them to lead it into what they expect to be for themselves. So I'm so grateful. The ideas that have been popping up when you've been deconstructing and then rebuilding, once again, you got to tear stuff off in order to build from like an authentic space. And I think that's the process that's been happening. And once again, just to be clear, I don't ever think that process is pretty. It's just not. It's hurtful and it's painful and it twists and turns and it's not linear. So thank you to the students for sticking in, for being able to speak so eloquently, and thank you to the adults for sticking in and allowing the process to kind of absorb and move forward. That being said, I do think there's some things that I imagine we can do to support this school in its trajectory as partners and not as punishment for what's happened over your contract term, but instead we can see that some of the practices that have been put into place are working. Also hearing from students, hearing from community, they want it to stay, right? And so it can't be dependent on a person, on a governing board member, on a we have to take all the individuals out of this process from where I'm sitting and try to kind of codify and solidify the process, the system, right? So where my mind goes is a couple places. I do think our new performance framework will help support this school in getting accurate data that you feel confident in to be able to help encourage the school towards goals. Obviously, your school can choose to do whatever option you'd like. I do see an option 3 where you're really looking at how are students being assessed in Navajo? How are they being assessed in Zuni language? How are they being assessed in English? It actually can be how you're assessed. We don't have to only take, it's the reason why we did this is for stuff like this, to where we're not doing this one box fits all and you got to check off these things. So I do think there's a level of creativeness we can do in the performance framework that allows for the school to present its academic data in a way that makes sense for the students, makes sense for the school, but also still holds a very high rigorous bar across all the standards that need to be hit in this school. So I do take a step back because I do believe there's a way we can really support the school for continuity by making sure the performance framework is strong, like very strong, very specific, diligent. And then once again, that goes over the contract. So if every adult in this room leaves, all your students will have, that can stay consistent across the board to help with stability. And that's what I think I'm caring most about is how do we allow you to have space to continue for this to move, right? Some leverage where you're finding out these pods work, great. What if you do this as well? What if you do this instead? What if, to still allow for this creative flow that's happening in the school to continue while also holding to a bar, like a standard, a baseline that the students can predict is, well, this at least will stay. Even if we start flowing up here, the core stays. But once again, not knowing who's going to be where, and it shouldn't matter, I do think I would support an academic condition and a governance condition, just so that, once again, I don't think these are going to be hard conditions for the school to meet, because I believe the trajectory is going to make it to where it's like, yeah, we got that. We're doing it anyway. For me, putting the conditions on this particular school is going to be to support stability across time. That's the intention for me. So I do, I like the commissioners has said, I don't, there's really good number. The NWA numbers, massive. Like it's huge. And once again, you're showing students can come into a school at whatever level and can grow. That's it. It's that, like, they can grow and you're doing it. So, but I do think it's a point in time, not a trend yet. So that's why, once again, if we had had a couple more years in this contract term of seeing that, I don't think I'd be as concerned. But because it's like, oh, whoa, you found some kind of magic sauce in here that's working. How can we turn that into a trend? So that's why, for me, once again, putting that academic condition is only to just support that this is the trend we want to see it continue on. And once again, I think if there's consistency in the core of the school, I don't think it's a condition that's going to be hard to beat. Similar thing with the governance council. There's been some some differences coming up. There's been some things that are of nobody that's here. Nobody here led to that. But just because of it, once again, just creating some stability in what the core, which you guys are already doing. You're already getting these pieces in place. You're already doing it. For me, it's stability over time. And so that's why I would support those two things. The other thing I want to say is I actually think that I can't remember who said the adage of like you can't reach them until you teach them, or you can't teach them until you reach them. And I actually think this school in particular takes it one step further that I haven't heard yet before, but I think you should figure out how to coin it with your students, that you can't reach them until you know them. Right? We keep saying you got to reach them, but people don't take the time to actually get to know how to reach students often, how to reach teenagers, right? And I think teenagers are incredible. I was a middle school teacher. I love teenagers. I think they're the greatest. I think it's the greatest and most horrific time of your life. I mean, it's the most incredible part and worst part of your life all together at once. When else? I think it's great. Teenagers actually aren't that hard though. I mean, food and feeling known throughout this tumultuous time, it's kind of, I mean, they're pretty simple actually. Once again, the school brings it down to like, actually, let's just keep this simple. Let's get to the human nature of all of us and focus on that. So yeah, that's all the things. I'm grateful for once again, thank you for the students. Thank you to the governing board for coming in, really taking a look at things, for listening to students, for allowing your brains to expand as well. Because I know for adults, for kids, it's hard to get them to think a different way. Oh my gosh, for me, it takes I gotta tap on my brain a little bit to be like, nope, think different. It's hard. So for everyone in the community to be on this page of let's look at what the system was, what does it have to be, and how do we work within sometimes a very rigid system. But honestly, this is a perfect example of why charter schools are supposed to be here. We're supposed to be. Every neighborhood school should be an incredible neighborhood school. Every school in New Mexico should be an excellent option. Also, this is a unique school model, which also should be an option. So I'm very grateful. The transformation that's happened is well-deserved. A lot of work and effort and attention and consciousness has gone into this school. And so easy support for the next 5 years for me. And once again, the only reason I'll support conditions is just to help increase the stability across the next contract term. And that's it. Because I don't want to touch what you're doing. I think what you're doing is it feels right. It sounds right. The data is showing you're on the right track. So that's where I am. Is there anything, my question is there any kind of, I saw that you're writing the Governance Council handbook. What I'm wondering what has been done or what is being considered to be done to systematize and codify what's going on in the school in some way, to where if leadership changes out, the core stays the same. I know you're thinking about it. So what are you all thinking of? How do you get it in writing somehow to pass on and someone else be able to execute? Yeah, it's probably administration.
Ooh, I've actually been working on this for a very long time because it started when I first got here and I was trying to understand what it is. So I've been having these little appendices to be like, this is what you do when X, Y, Z. This is what you do, and just kind of write it in, document. It's almost like a praxis of what would this look like trying to explain a decolonial system, but still in the Western. And so I have this massive succession plan of just little tiny things that came kind of little handbooks of personnel, coaching, students, families, and all the things that you would need to know for all those different altitudes and levels. And then there's so many things to being a head administrator that's so massive, and it keeps unfolding into greater lists of what you need to be in that role. And there's
massive things institutionally with PED or certain things. There's like, how do you manage the grants? All of those little things are really important. And it's also like, where are the grades? How school is located and then option three to be this massive like, how do you come something so agile and autonomous and sovereign, but also so like entrenched in systemic disruption almost? And so that's been really fun to be able to think and how to assess and how to like teach others. I think the goal for me in the succession plan is to like dream up, how do you create the hub that attracts decolonial so that others can having to like go to college or something. And then also, just to speak to that, I just wanted to say that the adults also come in just as traumatized as the kids because they all come from districts too. And the way to also become authentic selves, deep relationality, knowing them as well, and then watching their tension leave. And I think that have been constant with our partnership with someone called Megan Wedding. She was the first and only exemplary teacher in the state of New Mexico when that whole teacher evaluation system first came out. And she was instrumental in creating the system structures, relationships, and resources. There's still constant PD available for the support systems that created this system. And I think having her help us codify those things as well of what are our core values. As our core values, what are collective core values? And our collective core values, how does that apply to the mission? And cycle of socialization, how do we understand what so that we can replicate harm? And I think codifying that we're going to replicate harm has been kind of that succession plan. So like there's massive manuals that I've been working on, but I'm still like in my own head to try to make them as simple as possible and then also as much complex. So I have all the things.
You're writing a book. New educating students. No, I mean, that's going to be my encouragement. And I usually will say this to any school about that I get worried when it like there's this incredible administrator or head leader that's doing the day-to-day operations and has a vision, right, of what that looks like. That is so difficult to duplicate and pass on. And so, I mean, that happens with many charter schools. Someone starts it with that clear vision, right? Very clear. So you coming in and taking the original vision and then clarifying is even a more interesting case study for me. But usually it's those founders, right, that come in and they have this clear vision and then they'll stay for a while and really solidify it. But that transition is shaky. Like it is so hard to take the vision, the overall, this is where I want it 10 years from now and give it to someone else who then has to go learn day to day, right? And so I hear you saying you're grappling with it. I think that's what's going to, not to put that pressure on you, but that is going to be what either makes or break this school long term, right? Is having that core be solid to where it's not individual based. It's really the spirit of the school, which, yeah, intangible. So, yeah, figure out how to write that down. Good luck with that. But yeah, that's what I would say. That's my only question. My only concern is going to be that. So yeah, we'll come back around. Commissioner Carrillo? Sure. So before we do a motion, we'll take a break. Yeah, we'll take a break. But before we take a break, I'll let Julia. Any other questions before? Because it does sound like we'll go to motion after this. Any other questions before we? Okay.
Good morning. I wanted to explain a few things about the motions overall and what's in the motion folder. So first in the motion folder, there is an Excel document with 2 tabs. If you go to the second tab, it orders all of the state charters by VISTA score, and any school that you are looking to have a renewal hearing on the far right is in green. So you can pretty easily go down and see where they are in comparison to other schools, just as information for you all to see where they are. You can also see across the line what kind of in a snapshot how they were renewed or their most recent annual report. So you can get a snapshot of every school. The first tab is alphabetical, but I think the Vistas tab is
more relevant for you to just take that into consideration when you're making your decisions overall. Then on the motions, I just wanted to tell you what I did in the drafting of the motion. So I went back to the CSD recommendation, and that is in the condition, the CSD recommendation, which, and I do want to note that the CSD recommendation discussed proficiency last year. Then I went back to your motions last year. Last year, you all discussed growth. So I've put both of those words in there. Again, typically, though, I think you'll take a break if you want to wordsmith something. And then last year, sometimes if you did a condition on academics, you just did improvement in the area. And then sometimes you put a second provision about an educational plan. So sometimes you did both, sometimes you did one. They are in there. I think those are my only points in terms of you seeing why the draft motion reads the way that it does. And then if we're taking a break, anyone that wants to discuss the motion with me could come over to where I am. That'd be great.
Let's just do 5 minutes tops.
Ms. Rebecca?
Right, before Commissioner Carrillo, and we're going to go ahead and make a motion.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Chair Bird. I'm going to make a motion. I move that the Public Education Commission approve the application for 6 Directions Indigenous School for a 5-year term with the following conditions. That the school's record of performance demonstrates improved student academic proficiency and growth in English language arts and math, beginning with specific immediate action as outlined in the school's negotiated charter contract, using 4th and 5th year data from this contract term as a baseline year for academic improvement, and that the school identify a robust strategic educational plan to improve student outcomes, which includes a specific plan to improve each academic area and each element of the educational program, and that the governing board consistently comply with governance requirements in the performance framework as outlined in the school's negotiated charter contract, and ensure that written governance board policies are in place for all key governing board requirements.
Second.
And there's more. Okay. The first annual, thank you, Julia. The first annual report will confirm completion of the item listed above. If the concern is not corrected, will identify the uncorrected, unsatisfactory performance that may be subject to further PEC action.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Commissioner Correa, second by Commissioner Taylor. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah. I've done kind of a 180 from where I was this morning and wanting and just saying I have a great deal of faith in this school, more than I have had in other schools over the almost 5 years that I've been here. And I just, yeah, I believe in you.
Track of
How you just like, no, I just, what is that thing about a mind in a parachute or something? You got to keep an open mind. You go in that way, got to have open minds, right?
So Commissioner Obenshain is not on right now, so we can take a verbal vote. So all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it, unanimous. Congratulations. All right, thank you, folks. We're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we'll start back at 11.